What's up guys, it's me Deshaun, and today we'll be ranking every single captain in Fire Force from weakest to strongest and going over all of their abilities. Hope you guys enjoy the video. Please take a moment to like the video and subscribe. And to start this list off, we have the captain of the 6th Brigade, Kayako Huang. Now, since the 6th Brigade specializes in the medical field, it is only natural for them to somewhat be the weakest because all of their resources would be focused elsewhere. But this does not mean the 6th Brigade or its captain are a laughing matter, because they do have a decent amount of combat ability. But unfortunately, we do not see this combat ability taken to the next degree or the limits of it, because they only really fight a very weak first generation Infernal. And Huang just seems to fight them with giant medical instruments. That's kinda decent, but I wouldn't say that it's as well as other brigades in terms of the equipment that they use, such as the 7 style firefighting battle axe or anything that Vulcans invented. So her resourcefulness in battle is extremely weak in comparison to other brigades, but her ability is absolutely insane. She controls a flame serpent that heals wounds, illnesses, and virtually anything that could be wrong with someone. In fact, she also used this ability to save Shinra's life twice. In both times, he was literally on the brink of death. But another ability which I think could personally put her further on the list is the fact that she can make a pyrokinetic's own flames kill them. This is a very broken ability, but unfortunately, it seems as if her serpent would have to be making some form of contact with whoever she's trying to heal or damage, and I don't think she's doing that to anybody above her on this list. Above Huang, I decided to go with Hibana, the captain of Company 5, which would also be one of the brigades created by Hajime Industries, which would mean they're more or less a brigade that leans more into science, if anything else. But despite that, Company 5's combat abilities are much higher than the 6th Brigade, and as a captain, Hibana would be much stronger, not only because the 5th Brigade is much better suited for combat, but due to Hibana's intellect and overall flexibility of her 3rd generation powers, I can easily say that she's much stronger than Huang. Hibana is so strong in combat, she was actually giving Shinra a run for his money. With her ability Heat Syncope, she can completely immobilize her targets by wrapping their bodies in a heat wave. And that same heat wave would expand your blood vessels and lower your blood pressure, drastically decreasing the blood going to your brain, and will give you vertigo. But not only this, because she is a 3rd generation, she could conjure flames to easily damage her opponent while they are immobilized. And she does this to Shinra, barraging him, toying with him, and burning him with her flower petals. Honestly, if you wanted to argue that Hibana could be higher on this list, I wouldn't even get mad at you, because these are some strong abilities. And then you add her intelligence on top of that, it would be fairly easy for her to defeat almost any opponent, unless they body through her ability like Shinra. Now up next, I'm going to put the captain of the 4th Brigade, Soichiro Hog. Outside of Obi, he is the only captain that doesn't have any pyrokinetic abilities. But what he makes up for in his lack of abilities would be his skills in combat. While fighting a Shinra that has been driven mad, he was able to stand against him. This would be a Shinra not holding back, and a Shinra that would be much stronger than the one Hibana fought. Hog's skills are so sharp, he would be considered an elite. Now, why would I put him above Hibana? Well, obviously he has better combat skills, but he's also fighting a much stronger Shinra. So much so to the fact that Shinra wasn't strong enough to even scratch Burns or even approach him. But the Shinra that Hog fights was strong enough to make Burns' arm tingle. And this display of power, this moment when Shinra is so strong that he makes Burns' arm tingle, this display of strength was strong enough to convince Burns to tell him everything about what happened to his family. So Hog is fighting a significantly stronger Shinra, so I think this is fair enough to put him on a higher tier than Hibana. Now next up on the list, I decided to use the new captain from the 1st Brigade, Huo Yan Li. Unfortunately, we don't get to see much information based on this character, but with the information that is displayed, I feel like Hwo's combat ability surpasses Hog's, not only because of the fact that he has actual pyrokinetic abilities, but because he uses his own martial arts with his lantern fist, which would obviously take a lot of skill to develop. But even with just one arm, using this technique, he's able to absolutely decimate infernals, like much stronger infernals than what previously existed in the world of Fire Force. Due to the Great Cataclysm, infernals have becoming much stronger. And this guy, Hwo, with one hand, can absolutely destroy them. Special, high-level talking infernals. If he's this strong with one hand, you can only imagine just how powerful he'd be with two. After all, they chose Hwo to be the new captain of the 1st Brigade for a reason. This would mean he would be living up to the expectation of Burns, and he's able to do so with one arm. Up next, we have another new captain, and he would be the replacement captain of the 4th Brigade, Panko Pat. Now, when it comes between Hwo and Pat, it can be kind of divisive, but I mainly put Pat above Hwo because not only does he have a much more effective ability, but he isn't handicapped, and we have a lot more details on how strong Pat actually is. Maybe if you don't like these two placements, you can make them interchangeable, but I'm more or less going to choose Pat because overall he just has a lot more going for him. For example, while Hog was fighting Shinra, Pat was the reason why Hog wasn't taking any damage due to his ability. The ability to enhance and buff yourself and others around you. This ability is so strong when a colossal infernal was trying to attack a bunch of civilians. Pan was able to buff every single last civilian and made sure all of them came out of the fire unharmed. Pan is so strong, he was able to fight the idea of Hog, aka his doppelganger, and completely one-shot him, allowing for Pan's punch to do quadruple the amount of damage it would normally do. Now, when it comes to Pan's defensive and offensive abilities, I think they're much better than everyone else I previously mentioned. But above Pan, I decided to put Gustav Honda because his overall attack power is in a completely different league. His headbutts are so strong, he can easily one-shot a giant infernal without even trying. And there are very few captains capable of doing that. Now, whether or not Gustav can one-shot a colossal infernal, it's kind of debatable because we don't know whether or not he does this off screen, but regardless, I still feel like this would be a good spot if he killed that colossal infernal or not, because he's ultimately in a different league of firepower in comparison to the after-mentioned captains in this video. Up next on the list, we have the leader of the 3rd Brigade, Giovanni. Now, when it came to choosing between Gustav and Giovanni, I was kind of torn because I don't think Giovanni can generate high tier levels of firepower, but despite this, his hacks and abilities would give Gustav a run for his money. Especially when you take into consideration that Giovanni, when he's fused with bugs, was able to fight Shinra, who at this point was able to fight Charon. Giovanni has decent strength, but the fact that he's able to react to and fight Shinra and his multiple abilities, such as reading minds, spraying steam, and using whatever bug-like abilities he might have at his disposal. He can even turn into a swarm of bugs, practically making it impossible to truly damage him. But not only this, he could also turn you into an infernal and take over your body. Now, it could be debatable on whether or not he could do that to said characters or opponents, but regardless, I still feel like this is a decent spot for him to be on the list. I was thinking Gustav could maybe one-shot his swarm of bugs, but I don't think he'd be doing that without his artillery cannon. So more or less, I think he would get overwhelmed by Giovanni's swarm because Giovanni would just read his mind and react to him. Up next, we have the captain of the 1st Brigade, Leonard Burns. He is so strong, it has been a long time since anybody has ever damaged him. And in his base form, which Ogun can match if he uses Flamey Ink, can match up to a Demon Infernal. And this is not including the other forms of Burn's ability through Voltage Nova, with each and every stage getting significantly stronger in firepower than the last. He's so strong in his final state, Shinra had to tap into his light speed to take Burns down. Then you take into account that he hasn't been damaged in so long or even felt a slightest tingle until Shinra hit him for the first time. Burns is in a completely different league than every other captain. Or at least he would be the start of the high tier captains that nobody can touch, even if they dreamed of it. Now the top 3 strongest captains that are in a completely different league from Burns. Starting with the number 3 spot, we have the previous captain of the 7th Brigade. The previous Hikeshi of Asakusa, Hibachi Shinmon. Now when you take into account that Conroe was able to defeat a Demon Infernal and he's not even at the same level as Hibachi or Benimaru, that should say enough in itself. Hibachi is so strong, he is the sole reason as to why Benimaru was able to find strength. Simple clashes between both Hibachi and Benimaru were enough to warp reality, changing the clouds in the sky and the actual ocean underneath them. Simple clashes were also splitting the sky as well, or at least somewhat dividing it. And his firepower is so strong that it can melt the sea. Without a doubt, Hibachi would destroy everyone underneath him on this list. The reality warping should say enough in itself. Now, above Hibachi, this might be a little divisive, but I decided to put end of series Obi above him. So Obi was able to keep up with Benimaru in a 1v1 at the beginning of the series due to hysterical firepower. Hysterical strength is basically like ki, spiritual energy, or in this case the power of the soul in Fire Force. Now to keep this short, at the end of the series every single character gets a power boost after death takes away their soul, and characters that had these very powerful souls during the age of human combustion are now in a completely different league, are extremely powerful. Obi can rip up the earth with his bare hands by the end of the series. We don't know if this is the full extent of his powers, but I highly doubt it, and I think this feat in itself would put him above Hibachi. Again, ripping the earth apart with your bare hands. And this is probably not the full extent of his powers. Now above him, we have the strongest captain in all of Fire Force, and debatably the strongest character in all of Fire Force, well, outside of Shinra. We have Benimaru Shinmon. Benimaru is a god, and he'd absolutely decimate every single character underneath him on this list because he is both a 2nd and 3rd generation fire soldier. This means he can control flames and create them at the same time. And he's one of the few characters to have mastery over his soul or spiritual-esque abilities / key abilities in the entire series. He can use the breath of life and sense where you are and predict your movements. He can use the pressure of death to push himself beyond his human limitations, if you could say even has one, because this guy was warping reality while fighting Hibachi, and his reality warping is so crazy, he created the iconic Soul Eater Moon. It gets even crazier because when Benimaru is fighting his doppelganger casually creates a Nichiren, a giant flaming ring around the earth, making a planetary attack without even trying. And Benimaru one-taps this character. He one-taps his doppelganger that can easily destroy the planet. And what makes this even crazier is the fact that this doppelganger is the idea, the human cognitive manifestation of what humanity thinks the strongest person on Earth would be, and he completely one-taps it without even trying. And this is not even including at the end of the series that he gets a giant power boost like Obi. Unfortunately, we don't get any details on that, but if Benimaru was this strong prior, who knows how strong he is at the very end. Now, with all that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this Fire Force video. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more. Comment your favorite character from the list in the comment section down below. Comment some honorable mentions. And don't forget to check out our Patreon so I can keep giving more videos like this to you guys. And with that, I'll see you guys in the next video.